Hello, everyone. Good evening, morning, afternoon, from wherever in the world you are joining from. It's Mohammad Ishan Dakhi here with you, joining from Hub of Finance Transformation, Dubai. First of all, we warmly welcome you to this exciting webinar on the finance function of the future. And we are really excited to have our special guest speakers also today with us, Bill Anderson, David Daly, and Sir Peter. I will be giving you their introduction. So first of all, thank you all of you also who have already joined this webinar, and we hope you will get lots of value out of it. So as we all know that the finance has been going a very significant change and transformation as we have been living in the era of disruption due to emerging technologies, changing economic conditions, uncertainties, and after the emergence of COVID-19 pandemic, of course, the role of finance has become more at the forefront of the business, and the finance function of today needs to be more agile, and they need to support the business in their strategic as well as operational decision making. So the finance should not be no longer be the back-end service provider, rather they should support the business as their strategic and the finance business partner. So that's what all our experts are going to talk about today in today's webinar. So just before we move on, I will just like to give you something about our housekeeping items. That is going to be almost 1 hour webinar, and we will be having a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, where you can leave your question in the chat box. If you have any question, you can just leave your question in the chat box. So we will try to address as maximum questions as possible during our Q&A session with our speakers. So just I would like to give you a very quick introduction of our speakers today. Mr. Bill Anderson, he is the founder and the global CFO, head of finance and MI operations, previously at Royal Bank of Scotland, and also he's a former head of internal audit. He sits on a number of boards in the region on either strategic, commercial, or financial officer within the UAE, Dubai. And we have Mr. David Daly. He's also a Middle East-based qualified accountant, and he has over 20 years of global experience in finance transformation. And we have Mr. Peter Watley also with us. He's also a Middle East-based qualified chartered accountant. He was a tax partner at Grant Thornton and has held senior executive and finance leadership positions with several well-known groups in the UAE, Qatar, and South Africa. So first of all, we warmly welcome all of our speakers to this webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. Okay, so before moving on, just I would like to give you a quick background about HOFT. HOFT, as you all know, it's a global training and consulting service provider of business excellence solutions since 2018. We have a world-class team of experts on different areas of finance, emerging technologies, business partnering, data analytics, leadership, who have global experience, and including Bill Anderson, he's also a part of our team, and David and Peter as well. And we are providing services in different areas of domain. As you can see, we are also providing corporate training and coaching on business partnering, emerging technologies, analytics, leadership, and also we are providing management consultancy to on number of areas of finance transformation, digital transformation, analytics, emerging technology, strategic consulting, finance coaching. And we have currently almost 4 clients at the moment. We are serving in Egypt, in UAE, in Saudi. So we are working on some major finance transformation projects also with them, as well as we are providing some virtual outsource services as well to different countries, like a CFO, virtual CFO, business partnering. And apart from this, we also held different webinars, podcasts with world-class experts in areas of finance, leadership, technology. And these are some of our existing clients whom we are working on the finance transformation projects, including Egypt, Oman, UAE, and Saudi. Whom we are already worked on, and also currently some projects are still going on. And we have also corporate clients in the training industry from all these companies. We have delegates from all these companies who attend our trainings, our webinars, our workshops during the last couple of months. And this is our team, as you can see on your screen. We have a team of experts from different parts of the world, including USA, UK, Canada, and they have expertise in different areas of domain. For example, Jasper, he is expert in analytics. Brian Kelly, he has expertise in financial planning analysis. Steve, Anand, they are very experienced CFOs, and they are all like practitioners, including Bill Henderson, who is also our speaker today. They are having expertise of more than almost 2 to 3 decades in the finance and emerging technologies, automation. So all of them have expertise in different areas. Like Ms. Talita, she is also from UK. She has expertise on the leadership side. And then we have Zaid Kalia, who has expertise on the communication. So like this, we have expertise in different areas of domain. So they are our trainers, as well as they work on our finance transformation projects as well on our clients, as I explained to you. So currently we have also launched one program which is going to start next week, that is finance transformation data analytics program. Also almost more than 20 finance leaders from different parts of the world have already joined this program. And this is a 4 months virtual training and coaching program in collaboration with our strategic partners, Aurora Prediction, Finance Analytics Institute, and CFO University based in USA. And we have already just 2 days are left. So if anyone is interested, still they can go to our website and just they can register for this exciting program, which we are going to start shortly. So that's all. And for further details, you can just visit our website at hof-global.com, and we also encourage you to join us on LinkedIn and also our YouTube channel to keep yourself updated with all our upcoming plans, programs, initiatives that we are taking for the global community of finance professionals. So now, without taking further ado, I will just hand over the session to our very first speaker, Bill, who will be giving his introduction, as well as he will be conducting the entire webinar. So Bill, and now the floor is yours. Over to you now.
Thank you, Mohammed. We're just waiting there for the slides to switch over. Great, thank you. Okay, can everybody see those slides?
Yes, we can see.
Great. Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Bill Anderson. It's a pleasure to meet you all tonight. Thank you to Mohammed and all the great guys and people at Hoft. And most importantly, thank you for coming along on a Saturday. I know it's not easy on the weekends, but it's always a good time, I think, for people to get together. Tonight's conversation is about the finance function of the future, or what we tend to call CFO 4.0. This seems to be slow. Okay, so just to go over the agenda for tonight, we're going to give you a very quick introduction to Big Business Improvement Group and GTAG Gov Tax Accounting Group. They're the two firms who are presenting tonight. We have partners from both entities. I will talk about the first topic about CFO 4.0. Peter will be talking about automation and robotic process automation, again, one of the very hot topics in the CFO and finance community. David will talk about emerging trends in finance post COVID-19. Again, very topical, very unusual time we find ourselves in. So again, really important area to have a chat about. We're then going to have a panel session. So, you know, we are 3 CFOs for 20 years each, over 20 years working in the industry. We're chatting about basically what is the future CFO going to look like. So again, you know, it's a very open forum from that point of view, and hopefully you'll get a lot out of that piece. We're going to wrap up then just with a little highlight of some potential future sessions that we're going to do in conjunction with Hoft, and finish on a special offer. It's always good to get something for coming along for today. Again, for all of you, this should be allowable for CPD reasons. That's probably the least beneficial thing hopefully you get out of tonight. Okay, just a quick one on house rules. We are going to have a little piece at the end of each section, but because it's such a short session tonight, you know, we're only going to take 1 or 2 questions at the end of each session. If you have questions and you'd like to submit them, please do, and we can take them offline with you. If there are other future topics that you'd like us to chat about as well, please make sure you feed that back. And anything you liked about tonight or disliked, if there are things you think we didn't cover as part of that, then please, we're always keen to find out and get good feedback. There may be opportunities for us, because obviously we're a consultancy practice, so Apart from education, most of our time is spent actually working with companies in and around finance and business transformation, in particular on the technology aspects of it. So if there are projects that you have going, then please feel free to have a chat with us, and we'll provide you with the information, contact details at the end. Right, that's out of the way. Just a very quick little snapshot about what is Business Improvement Group. We call it BIG. So Business Improvement Group, it's a boutique advisory firm, and we primarily cover strategy and commercial subject matter areas with business owners and the CFOs, the CEOs and the CFOs. In the last 3 to 4 years, however, we've really pivoted towards technology and finance transformation, even before the whole COVID piece hit. And as a result of that, because technology we see as being really critical, then it's really important to have cybersecurity and a very solid foundation as well. So they're the areas that we talk about. We're a company which have only people at partner level, so we don't have juniors, we don't have trainees, we're just people with typically most of our 20 years experience. There's a lot of gray hair in the organization, and we're not just consultants. We are consultants now, but we've actually worked in the roles as CFO. So I was a CFO, Peter was, David was, and we have chief technical officers, chief investment officers, and chief information security officers. So we set up in the Middle East. We're not based in the UK or the States. We're based in the Middle East. We've been working in the Middle East, and we understand the way business works here. And we sit in a number of different boards as trusted advisors, and we typically bring what we feel is global best practice to the Middle East region. We work onshore, which is typically what people term when you're working on the island itself, but we also work in the international financial center areas as regulated advisors. And so that's, in a nutshell, that's what we do. Gulf Tax Accounting isn't a little snapshot here, but again, we provide outsourced CFOs and outsourced accounting services to lots of different companies in the region. We help everybody from strategic reviews, we do the business health check. A lot of work at the moment is around automation and ERP systems and cybersecurity. But we are also working a number of cases at the moment where some individuals are exiting their business. We have some clients who are bringing investors on board, and that is something that we do as part of our day-to-day role. So there's quite a lot of variety in what we do. Okay, so we've got a few photographs of people who are probably all a couple of pounds too heavy. So there's myself, I'm the managing partner of Business Improvement Group. Then you have Peter and David, who are two of my co-founders in Gulf Tax Accounting. Pete is our Chief Technology Officer and partner in BIG. We have Chris, who's an attendee tonight, who again, great background in IBM as a consultant, partner, and also ex-PwC. And he's a director with the firm. And then we have Anna, who's our IoT expert, and Vlad, who's our Chief Information Security expert. Behind us, though, there is quite a big network of collaboration partners. So we really stick very much to advisory and solution design, but we have a wide network of some of the largest partner groups in the world, which you'll see when we're chatting tonight. Our capabilities, well, in terms of both organizations, we cover everything from automation, technology, cybersecurity, to finance, tax, IFRSs. You think about it, we can cover it. We're finding more and more business in the region, and more families in the region are looking to set up family offices. That's probably going to be one of the big growth areas this year. And in view of the fact that the markets are going to be extremely volatile, this is a really key one for families to hold on to their wealth. Okay, just a very quick piece about myself. I'm the managing partner, set up Business Improvement Group. I'm the co-founder, Gulf Tax Accounting Group. I sit in a couple of family offices. I'm a chief strategy advisor for an Emirati group. I set up a wealth firm when I retired from banking in the UK. I was the CFO, Global Head of Internal Audit for Royal Bank of Scotland Group. I worked with United Bank of Switzerland, Legal and General Investment Management. My working career has primarily been in financial services. I work with a lot of tech startups and have been for the last 15 years or so. And I sit as an advisory CFO on a couple of regulated entities in the International Financial Center in the region. So business is my passion, and this is what I want to chat to you about tonight. CFO 4.0, the future finance function. So I'm really going to focus tonight on one of the skill sets which CFOs don't traditionally have, or they're not traditionally very strong in, but which going forward is absolutely vital for them. And this is where typically we work with CFOs who are more traditionally finance, which obviously makes sense, but who are now recognizing that systems and technology are crucial to their business to succeed going forward. So when we talk about digital transformation, you know, a lot of people talk about finance transformation. For me, it's business transformation. And one of the really crucial factors here, I split it into 4 areas. There's automation and robotics, data visualization, analytics, and then analytics for the business. So analytics kind of spread across 2 areas, finance and the business. Peter is going to go into a lot more detail tonight about automation or Rpa. Again, you know, when we talk to a lot of firms, they're not really sure what to do. So Peter's going to go through an example of that tonight. But you know, automation is literally across an opportunity across your entire organization. But because there's such a huge opportunity with automation, you know, so it's definitely something as a strategic tool you should be using in your business, but how you deploy it and how you manage and how you project govern it is absolutely crucial. Unfortunately, we have a lot of companies who come to us who haven't started it properly. They typically go down a very technology-driven process, and really this is the opportunity for CFOs to take this crucial area and control it within their organization in conjunction with their technology people. Again, data visualization. Well, for me as a CFO, when I took over being a CFO in RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, one of the biggest challenges is we had lots and lots of information. On our monthly board meetings, we had so much information and so many board packs, and they were so thick, 60, 70, 80 pages thick. People didn't have the time to take in the information. So one of the things in my job as I began to understand is it's really crucial to slim down the information to make it easily understandable for the board members of each of the various businesses. And again, using visualization is really important. But you can only do this if you have systems which allow you to capture that key information, your key risk indicators, your key performance indicators. From the data capture side of it, then using advanced analytics. So again, most of us are used to doing top-down budgeting and bottom-up budgeting. Zero-based budgeting is very important at the moment, but a lot of the information that we have isn't what we call real-time. And real-time information is absolutely critical to your organization. Again, you know, speaking from our own experience, we have a number of clients. The biggest single complaint coming from the business side of the business, and in terms of the CEO side of the business, is that by the time he or she gets the information from their finance department, you know, it's 2 or 3 months down the line. It's too late for helping them to make critical decisions. Now, in a faster moving world, you know, we can't follow the old rules, and we've really got to move forward. And how do we do that? The challenge for us as CFOs is we're not necessarily involved in the detail and the planning to move our organizations forward, and we really should be. We're the people who understand most of the key indicators in our business, so therefore we should have a very big stakeholding at the table when it comes to bringing in this technology. So on the right hand side, there is a chart which shows you in terms of finance, what are the things that we can automate? What are the things we can fully automate in dark blue, highly automate, which is a lighter blue, and then the kind of the lightest blue is somewhat automated. Gray is difficult, okay? But as you look from top down to the bottom, you can see that for most of the areas, accounting, cash, revenue, financial control, planning analysis, tax, treasury, risk management, audit, and external relations, the vast majority of processes in those functions can be automated, either fully or highly or somewhat. It's in business development, you know, which again isn't necessarily something that sits within the finance function, is a little more challenging when it comes to automation. However, this is where it's critical to have other systems in place, like CRM systems, which help the business develop and chase and identify business. So there is really very little across the business area in areas that we would traditionally call back or middle office that isn't somewhat applicable to having automation. And how do we approach that? Well, we have to, because it's such a broad and wide area, we have to prioritize what we have. Sorry, I have a dog barking outside my window here. We have to prioritize what are the key return on investments for people. So one of the challenges we have when we look at large organizations who may have 50 or 60 companies is they do little pockets of automation. They have a tech person typically running it. They haven't looked at it from a return on investment, and they haven't prioritized what they're going to do. So you get a very poorly project managed piece of work, which typically means you don't get the returns. So it's really important when we talk about setting up automation that we have what we call a COE, a Center of Excellence. What's the best practice? What helps us get the best return on our investment? How can we make sure that the things that we're looking at in our business will actually make a difference to us if we automate them? If we automate, unimportant processes, we'll just have a much faster unimportant process. If we automate highly important processes like month-end cutoff, accounting operations, invoice generation and scanning, things like that, then we can really speed up how the business moves and how decisions and the information related to those processes gets passed through. So typically what we say to most organizations is we believe in the Center of Excellence approach and methodology. And for most people, instead of having a huge look at lots and lots of different areas, we'll normally ask them to select a pilot. One of the most critical aspects of a successful automation process is having a sponsor who has, in our part of the world, WASTA. There's no point in having someone who's middle management, being a sponsor for an automation project, because you really do have to get approved from the top down. That makes it much more likely to be successful. And the other crucial thing is at the start for a lot of these projects, because it's such a new area for people in finance and people in technology, it makes a lot of practical common sense to outsource and bring experts in who do this day to day. And those are the types of things that we do in big. Now, our motto and our approach with most companies, by setting up the Center of Excellence, what we start to do as part of that process is get the business themselves skilled up so that this is something that going forward, they become more self-sustainable. They will always need some level of support, but actually quite a lot of the work inside the company can be done by themselves. Okay, so we talked about data visualization. I'm a huge fan of visual aids within the business, whether that's on hard-coded reports or on digital online systems. Really, it's much quicker to spot something which has a red, amber, green status than looking at pages and pages of numbers and text. It needs to be user-friendly. So when we implement ERP systems or risk systems, I used to head up internal audit globally for Royal Bank of Scotland. A lot of people would waste time on the unimportant stuff. Color coding things red, amber, and green gets people's attention. Exception reporting, really, really critical here. Again, we want to have it real time. So it's not much good, and I'm speaking here as a former internal auditor and a former CFO in a large banking group, it's not much good if someone comes to me with an issue which happened 6 months ago or 3 months ago or a month ago. In the world today, you need to be able to react almost instantly. So we need real-time reporting systems. That's a huge challenge in larger organizations because there's so many systems, and unfortunately a lot of the systems are quite complex. A lot of people don't know how to use them properly. A lot of the money that they're paying for license fees is unused, and people end up using Excel. Now, Excel is good for doing a kind of a ad hoc reporting. It's a disaster if that's how you're running your business. So exception reporting, we really want to get business intelligence, and people need to think about how we can design this so that it makes an impact. At the end of the day, what you need to think about here is not like a CFO or an accountant. You need to think what is going to help my CEOs, my business owners really run the business, and how can I, if I'm the CFO, I'm the center of the organization when it comes to tapping into all the various information sources. The biggest challenge is there's multiple sources, multiple systems. I met a banking group last year. They had 200 odd systems, between the front, middle, and back office. Massive challenge. And one of the biggest issues is having clean and valid data. So a lot of people are working with data which isn't clean. So it doesn't matter how good the business intelligence application is that's sucking out that information at a summary level. If the data itself isn't clean, you're always going to have difficulty using that information. So for us, and I've been chatting to many different companies over the years about having this one source of truth. It really is crucial, and this is part of what ERP 4.0 is all about. Real-time analysis and reporting, I just thought was really interesting that 99% of CFOs want real-time processing, but only about 16% of them have, and that's a global statistic actually. So even in the region, across the MENA region, I think it's even worse than that. So again, how do we get real-time analysis? So for me, this crucial thing, this is the nirvana. An ERP system, it contains all our accounting and finance information, supply chain. If you have, for example, a container business, then Internet of Things will be sending a lot of information through. You've got various projects happening. You have CRM systems. You have your sales and marketing, your human resources, asset management, business intelligence, and lots of other data and big data analytics. The problem is, there's so many systems and so much information out there. How do we get it all in one place, one version of the truth? And it isn't easy because obviously companies, are changing or buying other companies, so they may inherit other ERP systems. Historically, most of these ERP systems, typically in the region, will be one or two of what we would probably all know as the kind of, it's effectively almost like a monopoly. 20 years ago, there was pretty much only two ERP systems, Oracle and SAP. I've worked with both of them in banking and across the investment management institutes that I worked in. Nowadays, there's a lot of new alternatives. They're more cloud-based, which again is a critical piece. It's a challenge sometimes because people are wary of cloud-based ERP systems. But at the end of the day, we find companies who, are slow to move to the cloud are emailing a lot of this extremely sensitive information in very, very insecure means by emails to other people externally to the company. So ironically enough, if you have a good cloud-based structure put in place, it's extremely effective from a security point of view. And this is why cybersecurity is so crucial. But there are new players there, and it's really worth looking at what's out there, because the challenge for many businesses at the moment is the expense, the licensing fees, and we all at the end of the day have to justify the costs within the business. There's a big challenge for people who, do we centralize everything that we have if we're a large organization, or can we be decentralized? Well, the answer is it depends on the business. But because of cloud-based approach now, it's actually easy to centralize aspects of the ERP process. And then certain other areas can be decentralized. But the crucial thing here is this is not something which should be owned by your CTO or your head of IT. This is something as an asset in your business. The data and the data applications really, in my view, should be owned by the CFO. And not necessarily owned outright, but certainly one of the key stakeholders in terms of how, the strategy for this in the company goes forward. What I would recommend, because the challenge for most CFOs is they don't necessarily have the skill set. It's a bit like going to the doctor. You don't know necessarily what's wrong. That's up to the doctor to work it out. So what we do as an organization is we do an ERP audit. It's like a health check. How is your ERP? What is your licensing situation? It is amazing when we sit with companies and they don't actually know, of the licenses that they pay for, how much of it that they use. What we typically find, unfortunately, is they have a lot more licenses which they're not paying for, but they are using. And the danger is if you try and move away from an existing ERP provider, they will do an audit on you. And if they discover you are using licenses without having paid for them, they will penalize you for that. So my kind of point of action on this for anybody out there who's considering, renewing and re-looking at what they're doing in their systems is to get an ERP audit, whether that's by ourselves in Big or by an external provider, please do. But find somebody who is unbiased, so they're not selling their own, try and find almost like what I would describe as a broker, an ERP broker, who will give you an independent advisory view on it. Okay, so just that this is a couple of, and I say the danger for us tonight is we're going to run out of time really quickly, so we don't have a huge amount of time to go into detail, but I thought some of these research papers that I was looking at over the last couple of weeks, 75% of people are going to be spending more on digital technology compared to over the next 3 years compared to today. I think every business has realized post-COVID that we have to look towards technology to solve a lot of the problems that we have. Because if people can't come into your office, the working process has changed dramatically, so there will be a lot more people working remotely. So therefore, we have to enhance our technology. As I talked about the other, the graph, responsibility of the CFO function should focus more on serving the business. Again, most CFOs probably spend 5 to 10% of their time doing what we call value-added services, and they spend 90% of their time running the core activities, which is typically what I call the accountant activities, not necessarily CFO activities on strategy, on the commercials and the pricing of the company. So again, we will be providing a copy of the slides as well. So, whilst we might be kind of going through at a rapid pace tonight, we will provide these to you so you can have a bit more chance to look through them. This is the challenge for us though. A crucial part here, I'm talking about technology. I know Mohammed works a lot with people and training people and getting people up to speed. But the challenge around digital transformation, we've had an example recently of a very large bank in the region who, for the last 2 years, have been trying to move their business to more of a digital banking business, and who literally a couple of months ago have pulled the plug on it and have gone back and actually said, you know what, let's just send most of our workers back home, which isn't, and most of those workers don't live in the UAE, but probably a vast majority live in India or Pakistan. And because they couldn't deliver the technology which would allow them to become more digitally focused. So this is the challenge. Do we have digitally savvy staff? Is there a CFO digitally switched on? And how could we improve our business if they were? So again, a big part of our job is to look and see what types of technology are out there to help businesses. Again, for me, the CFO function, when I started my career as a CFO, I was very finance orientated, but I grew up in family business. So I always had a commercial slant. It's really important to have the technical expertise and have those teams supporting you, but you also have to make sure that there are other skill sets. And this is why the training aspect is so important. But going back to RPA, as you can see, 55% of companies, and that's growing all the time, are currently bringing in RPA or robotic process automation into the business. I would say of that number, probably 5% of them are doing it properly. So if you're going to do it right. The great thing about RPA is the feedback in terms of the ROI results are actually extremely quick. So I'll whiz through this last piece. Again, for me, what are the characteristics of CFO 4.0? Digitally savvy, someone who is not just a financial person, but who also looks at the technology, digital, the people. He's a leader, he or she is a leader. They're less tick box, more people friendly, and they're really looking about value added. They're a change agent. And again, look, historically that may not have been seen to be the realm of the CFO, but today I think that's more and more important. Ultimately, for me, the shareholder or the CFO is the shareholder guardian. So whether that's the business owner, obviously in the Middle East, we typically have family-owned businesses. So, as a CFO, my job is to make sure that I'm protecting the assets of the business, of the family, and making sure that it's sustainable for the next generation, the second generation. And that's challenging. The statistics for successful business succession planning going from one generation to the next is, in the West, it's bad. It's even more challenging as we come to this part of the world, because again, you know, the way the building blocks and businesses are here. So this is going to be really critical. Again, I think this year is going to bring another 2008 moment to a lot of people to realize actually when things go wrong, they go wrong really quickly. So again, having someone who's commercial and product oriented, I think a lot of CFOs are now starting to look at what are the products. You know, it's not just about cost reduction, which is always very important. It's about efficiencies. It's about being customer focused. Okay, that was my little piece. I would like to introduce you now to Peter Watley, who's going to talk about automation and RPA. Peter is a chartered accountant from South Africa. As mentioned earlier, he's a real expert around the tax side of things, both direct and indirect. He used to be a tax inspector, and he was also a tax partner in Grant Thornton. He's been here in the region for many years and has worked as a CFO for some of the largest local family businesses, both in the UAE, Qatar, and some of the other locations as well. So I'll hand you over to Peter.
Thank you very much, Bill, and welcome everybody. Talking about quite an interesting and topical subject at the moment, automation and RPA. So Bill spoke about digital transformation and an interesting survey that was done by The Economist. And off the back of that survey, it turned out that 93% of organizations say that automation is the start of digital transformation. You know, I saw in the questions they were asking, there was a question asked about CFO 4.0. Why 4.0 when you have in FP&A you might have 2.0? You know, we look at it as being there are so many changes and increments that go on that if you were at CFO 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, there are so many changes going on, and changes are so fundamental and large, we might as well go big and move straight to 4.0. And that is with all these significant changes that are taking place. Bill, if we can move on. Okay, so when we have a look at RPA, there are a couple of key players. We know that 93% of organizations want automation to kickstart their digital transformation. But what is RPA? You know, you hear about robotics and robot process organization, and many people think they've been down to GITEX and they've seen the little dancing robot that Etisalat have out there. But that's not really what it's about. This is about using software and bots to emulate a person. So basically imitating what a person does by executing manual and repetitive tasks. Now, I think the important piece here is manual and repetitive, because when you're tied up doing these manual, repetitive, boring tasks, it takes your focus away from being able to deliver real value into the business. Not that these tasks are unimportant, but they are better done at a different level. RPA also doesn't allow for people to use discretion. It makes decisions based on a set of rules. And the outcome of that set of following a strict set of rules is that you will be correct 100% of the time, provided when you set everything up, you set your processes up correctly. You get that wrong, it will fail. Bill spoke about setting things up properly. Maybe 5% of these implementations work properly because they've not been set up correctly. Okay, so what else it does, it seamlessly integrates with existing applications. We often get asked the question, well, if I'm on Oracle, if I'm on SAP, if I'm on Dynamics, does it work with each of these? And RPA basically works with any of the major systems. In fact, basically with any of the systems that we're operating on or that are operating on in the region. Okay, so that's RPA from the one side, but customer outcomes, that's the next part of it. How does it impact on you? Well, it accelerates the benefits from digital transformation. It makes it quicker. It improves the customer experience. Now, if you think about where these sort of things have taken place, when last, if you were renewing your motor vehicle license, All right, in the past, you would have had to have probably gone down, get the thing serviced, but that still has to happen. Go and get insurance, go down to a center, get the vehicle license, and it was a big manual process. Now, over the last while, it's seamless. Once you've got your car inspection done and you've done your online insurance and you have all of those reports, you upload it, presto, your business is done. Your vehicle is relicensed. That is just one element of the sort of things that can improve your customer experience. There's also, as a result of the outcome of this, you get a reduction in compliance cost and risk. Why? Because if you've set it up properly, the bots don't make mistakes. So from an audit perspective, from a business operations perspective, we get it right every time. And then lastly, there's an increase in employee satisfaction and engagement. And it sounds sometimes a little counterintuitive because people are saying, well, robots are taking our jobs away. But what it does do is it allows people to focus on the exceptions, on the more complicated aspects, the more important and critical things of the business, that 10% of things that go wrong. Bill, can you move on? So the question gets asked, if automation is so great and fantastic, what can be automated? So once again, Bill earlier indicated that there's a lot of aspects of the business that can be done. The simplest one is CFO. From a CFO, I think stands to reason, first of all, is finance. And there are many, many aspects of finance, the whole procure to pay, process to pay, order to cash, even the generation of reporting, ad hoc reports, automatically issued. When we look at supply chain, inventory management, reorder levels. Now we know that a lot of the big ERPs do reorder levels, those sort of things, but we find that they're pretty cumbersome. There's a lot of maintenance going on in getting them up and running. There's demand and supply planning, invoice and contract management. In supply chain, the number of times we found contracts have come to an end, renewals haven't taken place automatically, escalations haven't been kicked in. Whereas if this was all monitored by a bot, it would happen seamlessly and leakage wouldn't be in place. We were consulting recently with a client on supply chain, and we found a hole. They were leaking about $40 million a year as a result of not being able to track contract assets within their supply chain. From an IT perspective, I think this stands to reason. Server and app monitoring, routine maintenance monitoring, patching, those sort of things, I think is critical within the IT department. Now, we're giving some examples on here, and this is by no means an exhaustive list. There is significantly more, and it applies with each and every business. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. Each solution is actually bespoke to your individual business. In HR, payroll, onboarding and offboarding, benefits administration, we did something a little while back where we looked at a simple HR function like getting a medical insurance card issued, and the process working out, but this was hand in hand with the insurance company. To get the card issued merely took a couple of minutes using RPA, as opposed to the days and sometimes weeks that it takes normally. And then we have customer services that can be used. Automatic password resets. How often do we have it? Oh, I need to get my password renewed, and then pieces of paper go backwards and forwards between your IT departments, and then things get updated, and then they fall between the cracks. Payments automatically scheduled, scheduling of appointments when new orders are made or issued. Bill, if you could move on quickly. Okay, so there are a lot of aspects of it, but now importantly, RPA stories. Now I gave one a little earlier where it was a $40 million hole because contracts weren't being done. but something that is dollars and cents worth. French investment bank recently used an RPA project on international payments. And just from a snapshot of this thing, took 4 weeks to implement for them, 100% implementation, and 20% gain in employees' capacity for higher value work. And that, I think, is the issue that we are looking at, is freeing up the employees' time to focus on more value added work. The return on investment with this project, 11 months. Errors reduced to 0, and processing time reduced to 90%. So if you think about the efficiencies and cost reduction or costs associated to inefficient processes, I think this is where RPA tends to come to the fore. Bill, if you can move on. A second one recently was UiPath helped AXA to save a significant amount of cash within a short period, 6 months. They deployed 13 robots over 6 months. It freed up significant man hours. Return on investment was in 6 months. All right. So when you have a look at these these sort of items, what was processed, what was automated? Motor trade policy renewals process. So it just happened seamlessly. The policy renewal went out. The questions were asked automatically, dealt with online, and it saved significant amounts of time and cost. Okay, Bill, if we can move on. Thank you. Okay, so when we have a look at it, what are we trying to achieve here? We're trying to create efficiencies in the group. And to do this, we want to automate as many processes as possible. You want to deliver significant cost reductions in a short time frame. Why? Because you're going to be, the cash is tight. Business is tough at the moment, especially post COVID-19, and in fact, right in the middle of the pandemic where we are now. So when we deal with, how do we get to those eventual outcomes? So the challenge is, let's get the right starting point. And it starts right at the beginning with a systems review and process reviews. And you do those two hand in hand with each other. And out of that, you can then identify the processes or your top processes to which you can apply RPA. There's lots of processes you can apply, but you want to apply RPA to your most critical processes and the ones initially that will give you the quickest return on investment. So you identify these processes, you then go about automating those key processes. The result of that is invariably cost savings, efficiency improvements, and we say profit increased, but in many cases, what it also does is has nothing to do with costs. Depending on which part of your business you're automating, you can plug revenue leakage with sales that haven't been recorded or not taken place or slipped through between the cracks. Someone who hasn't, they've renewed the lease is renewed and rolled over, but the escalation clause hasn't been applied, as an example. Okay, so we spoke about identifying the processes, getting this implemented, and it's, well, how long does it take to roll out? What is the process for going through automation? And typically, this is done over a few phases. There's usually a discovery phase, and we've suddenly touched base. We said, right, we want to go and do automation. So this is where we find out, you introduce RPA into the business. You've got to educate basically the people who are part of this team. You identify the critical pain points, because these are usually indicators of where RPA can help. They can significantly reduce the frustrations, delays, and so on. You can calculate a return on investment, and ideally at this stage, you try and identify a proof of concept candidate for this, because there's a lot of, I think Bill hinted at, getting something for a pilot phase. a proof of concept, and you take a key component that you want to automate. So once you've identified these, you kick over into the second phase, which is the pilot phase, proof of concept. You expect to get an immediate impact. When you see it working successfully, there's a great morale boost. The process is not one where people are left out in the cold. It's typically a gamification of process automation. And then we have something called task capture and rollout. And task capture is a very interesting aspect of it, and that is where you physically map out the individual process flows of the individual proof of concept item that you're looking at. And then finally, the individual proof of concept is just there to give you a proof of concept. Where you really start to get the benefit is on the growth phase. And this is where you can start scaling up and saving, because an individual bot doesn't necessarily only get used on one process. It can be used across multiple processes. So ideally, in stage 3, which is the growth phase, you take your top 10 processes and you automate those. You establish the center of excellence. This is where you want to have it as much information kept in-house, and develop work hand in hand with the consultant, because you create the center, and that drives future RPA within your business. And then you're looking at continuous automation to keep things going. Bill? Okay, so from ourselves, there are a lot of people out there who are doing automation. For ourselves, we basically have partnered with the 2 top automation partners or global partners. That's UiPath and Automation Anywhere. You know, we work hand in hand with them. We're an advisory partner, so we only deploy our partners as advisors to our clients, and we also will not try and just flog a piece of software as some people do. We try and do something that's of benefit to the business. And then as far as the rest of it goes, our implementation partners, so we're the advisory partners, and then we have implementation partners, and all our implementation partners are based on site in the GCC. Okay, so the next question would be, how long does it take? So the answer in reality is, how long is a piece of string? But typically the implementation for a bot or for an RPA process would run anything from 6 to 8 weeks is the usual sort of time. Sometimes it'll be a little shorter, sometimes a little longer, depending on complexity. But it's broken down into, as you could see from our original timeline, there's a discovery phase, there's analysis, there's designing a solution, it's putting the stuff in place, and then having the final go live pilot and go live. Okay, so we put in an RPA, we've done an RPA. So what does success look like? Well, I'll go to expected results first before we look at the challenges that we're facing. So usually it would be reduced costs. If you have a successful automation, you will have happier customers. There's faster and more streamlined processes for the staff. This can be a positive and a negative from a headcount, reduced headcount. Invariably, there is a reduction in headcount, but if the people are totally overworked with huge amounts of overtime coming through, what you can find by making use of this is that you can now do a normal workday, cover all the work, and your staff are far less stressed. So you may not have a reduced headcount, but you have more operational efficiencies and ultimately increased profits. But what are our major challenges that we face? Well, I think in the middle of a pandemic, COVID-19 is a major challenge. It's also been a catalyst for accelerating the use of automation because your bots work 24 hours a day. Your bots don't get sick. So certainly, whilst it is a challenge, it is also something that you can leverage off within your business. We are in a tough operating environment. Cash is tight. Businesses are struggling to a large degree. So that is a significant operational risk, and particularly as a CFO, is how you're going to deal with this and get things going. Digital and finance transformation is important. And then lastly, you're fighting against legacy environments where things don't necessarily are not the most efficient. And then you're working on reduced sources. Many people have been let go and been made redundant over this period of time. So it's your ability to be able to find the right people to staff up. Thanks, Bill. Okay, so we're going to be heading on to emerging trends post-COVID-19. So with this, I would like to hand over to David Daly. As you can see, David is ACMA out of the UK. He qualified at Trinity College, and he's had 25 odd years of global experience, a lot of it in transformational business. And how more transformational can we be looking at than working through digital transformation now? He's worked in a number of different businesses in a variety of roles and in a wide variety of business types. He's a published author. He's written a number of articles that have been published in the National. He's been involved with Bloomberg, and he has a lot of practical experience on the ground with all aspects of business. So if I can just hand over to David.
Hi, thanks, Peter. Good evening, everybody. Thanks again to HOT for having me here. What are the trends, Bill? Okay, you can read these, which is all well and good, and there's plenty of lists out there. Let's think about what these things mean. One of the things we're all guilty of when it comes to crises is we assume everything stops. And in many cases, that can be true. Our general day-to-day lives in lockdown last year stopped because we got locked in. In business, it's the opposite. Everything speeds up, and it has to because it focuses us. We have no choice but to make something happen in a different way because the usual way of business has disappeared. Okay? So, from a digital transformation point of view, we thought we knew what digital transformation was. We thought that e-commerce was here. Really, we were looking at the quick wins. Those things where it seemed obvious that digital transformation, e-commerce being one part of that, comes into our lives. The reality is we're only starting to scratch the surface. 20 years ago, in a project with a major or global pharmaceutical player who wanted to automate part of their finance function. They went for payables, okay? People who deal with your supplier invoices, 20 years ago. It automated the roles of 46 people. And what they automated wasn't the supplier invoicing. They automated everything from procurement to treasury. So the individual who wanted to buy, that supplier was set up within their system. So the person who wanted to buy would create a purchase order, which would then go through electronically the normal sign-off procedure, but there wasn't an accountant sitting there waiting to get a bit of paper and to send it on to a supplier. When the invoice came in, the goods arrived into goods inventory receipt, or the services were delivered. The supplier then went to an online portal, went back to the original purchase order, which was issued to them, and went, I want to invoice this, which converted it into an invoice. So now on the pharmaceutical company's site, it became an invoice. And then once it got signed off electronically, it automatically queued itself for payment and was paid. Everybody in that process were removed. Everything got dealt with a lot quicker. Mistakes stopped happening, okay? This is just an example. And by the way, this is an example from 20 years ago. And that is the reason I'm bringing this up as an example is to show you how far behind we are. We are an incredible country for throwing labor at everything. Okay, so the trend, which we have been forced to because of COVID, is things are going to have to change because we cannot and we do not need to do them in the way that we did. We don't need offices in the way that we did. That's a trend. Okay, now what that means is we need to reskill, because what's required for us to deliver for the businesses we work for is different. That also may mean that we need different individuals. We shouldn't be afraid of that. In the past, one of the ways people could measure their success, and did, was by the size of their departments. And that should never be the case. It should be what you are adding to the business in delivery. Smaller can be an awful lot better. Everything is changing, supply chain, and I'm going to pick in particular one industry, retail. We are used to going to our malls, our supermarkets, our high streets, and what's happening? We've gone to Amazon, we've gone to all those other platforms which deliver to us. What is happening to the malls, what's happening to the high street, is that they are becoming showrooms. You go there to see the product. You go into the shop, you don't want a stack of 10 of one product, you want one product and somebody to talk you through it, and then you go online and find the best deal. Now I ask you, or you ask me maybe, what sort of business is that? Well, the market will find a way. There will be a type of retailer who will work with the people who sell those goods, and effectively they become the marketing arm. The nature of marketing changes. That is a result of digital transformation, of the rise of e-commerce. And again, we're just at the start. These are trends. And if you don't believe that, have a look at the retail market, the high street retail market in the UK, as major player with 100, 150 years trading history goes bankrupt, one after another. Their time is over. It's changing. And you either change with it or you become irrelevant and you no longer have a business. Okay, part of that, automation. You've heard my two colleagues speak about that, my two co-presenters. You have to automate. You're automating anyway, and you have been in your jobs. When you make something easier, rather than sit down and repeat a process again and again and again, sending out maybe information, you get a mail merge file, just a little bit of software. That is automation. Now, dream bigger, dream a much bigger solution for your business, where finance and finance sit in the middle of a business are helping drive these changes. Now, as a CFO, as a finance director, you are at the heart of your business. You are exacting change, not just in your business, but in your industry. And you're not going to be able to do it yourself. The reality is none of us are as good as others. Whether you can do that within the business that you're in, or you bring in the right type of help to help you walk through that, to walk you through that change, to plan it, to affect it, and to make sure it happens. One of the other things, and I'm just going to move on, if I may, 2 slides, please, Bill. 2 slides, please. I want to talk about what the downside of all this movement to an IT world is, and that is your cybersecurity. We all like to think that our McAfee or whatever Windows Defender, which we have running on our systems, plus whatever IT is doing in the background, is keeping us safe. As you can see from these stats, if you can read them, mobile is becoming the place of choice to break into your systems. And think of yourself back in a medieval city, a citadel, a wall-surrounded city. The enemy can't get through the wall, but those walls had doors. You only need somebody to open the door. The enemy only needs to get through one part of it. Once they're in, they're in. And they can run rampant. And a mobile is much easier than trying to go through your mainframe, through your servers, through your emails. I've got a client of mine up in Abu Dhabi whose WhatsApp got hacked. Not his phone, his WhatsApp. I got a message first in Arabic, which I was a bit suspicious of. Then I got asked, can you give me a hand with something? And I said, sure. Then I got asked for my credit card details. A very lazy crook, but they're there. So your attack from a cyber perspective can come from anywhere. It's not about that email. It's about a hack against the system. It can come to your mobile phone, because these days your mobile phones are connected into your work systems. So that's one of the things you need to be thinking about, because the criminals are always looking for that little door in your citadel. And again, what we do see in the news is when somebody big gets attacked. British Airways a couple of years ago, Maersk, I think about a year and a half ago. We're talking one of the world's favorite airline to one of the world's largest shippers. And they're the ones we hear about. What we don't hear about are the SMEs. We don't even hear about most of the large companies when they get hacked, because quite frankly, it's not newsworthy. If it's not an international name, who cares? But those attacks are happening, and the attempt to attack are continual. So again, you need to ensure that your citadel is tight, that there's proper control, that you actually understand where its potential weaknesses are, that those upgrades are done, and that each one of them are done. Imagine you do upgrade 1, 2, 3, miss 4, and go on for the rest of them. Well, you've just left a little hole in your armor, but you say, I got the latest one, yes, but you missed the 1 3 ago, so you missed something in particular. And if you can't do that internally, or you're unsure, get a third party to come in who doesn't have an axe to grind, who will just tell you, I've had a look and I found this as an issue. Your workforce is changing, and this is huge. I've been in this country 13 years, and one of the things I see in organization after organization is we count inputs, not outputs in our teams. We measure thumbprints. How many of you are measuring the thumbprints, eyeprints, or whatever of your staff when they come into the business and when they leave? We don't measure output. We can end up employing people to check how many hours our employees are doing, rather than employing managers or doing the jobs we're supposed to do, which is to ensure that work is being done while they're there. Okay, we're now in a world, because we know we don't need people in the office. Then the question comes from there going, well, do I need employees at all? Or am I better off with an outsourced, on-demand, online workforce who are located wherever they are, because I am seeking their output, not their input, their output. I've given them something to do. They need to do it. Remote working, if you're looking for a quick win in terms of saving overhead monies, let people work from home. You only need half that office space if you need it at all. So I know we're running a little bit late on time, so I am going to wrap up there, and let's just move straight to panel. Bill, do you want to slide us forward to that?
Sure. We're just letting you know, guys, that we're going to extend the session by 15 minutes. We have had quite a few questions. So in order to try and do the panel, what we're going to do is we're going to take those questions offline and come back to you individually. And I will just push us on to the panel question. So we're going to focus, David, it's just having a chat. We're going to focus on the first panel question just over the next 10 minutes or so. And yeah, I guess it really is, it's the big question. What is the priority? What are the priorities for CFOs in 2021? I know that's probably the big question. It's kind of wrapped up with question number 2, which is like, what's our greatest challenge going forward? What for you, David, as a CFO? What's your great priority? What's your biggest concern or challenge for 2021?
Oh, wow. It actually is the planning process itself. As accountants, we've all done budgets. We do budgets year in, year out. And the problem with that is we get fixated on a period in time. We are in such a period of flux because we don't know when the world's going to reopen. We don't know in what order countries are going to reopen. So what we need to do from a planning point of view, which is part of our role, is to ensure that that plan is rolling and that plan is reviewed regularly. For that, I recommend maybe a 24-month rolling plan, which is reviewed every 3 months with the actuals put in and another 3 months added on the end. Eventually, you'll get out of this terrible habit of budgeting. And now you're continually looking because you got to allow a certain amount of time to pass, and things are moving slowly. We all thought this would be over by now. We're a year and a couple of months into it, and there's no sign of it to end. We've got only a few % of the world vaccinated. This is going on for a lot longer than we expect. Therefore, let's put a stake in the ground and say that 3 months is a good period to be continually reviewing. So then let's have rolling forecasting or rolling budgeting, call it whatever you like. But that, I think, is our greatest challenge as accountants in organizations.
Peter, if I direct the question to you, what are your greatest priorities as a CFO, and what do you think the greatest challenge will be for CFOs in the region?
Okay, so David has taken the CFO priorities looking at a longer term, but unfortunately a lot of the businesses at the moment have to suffer short term. So short term priorities would be surviving 2021. There needs to be a lot of changes made. Sometimes, unfortunately, some of the changes have already taken place, but there's some short-term pain that might have to be endured. And more importantly, for me, is the question that we were going to ask under point 4 regarding cash flow. Because without cash, it doesn't matter what our future plans look like. We need to be able to put in place something that manages our cash flow over this critical period. Because without that, we've got no business. We can't operate.
Yes, yes. I must admit, I think, look, I agree with both of you. I think it's the short-term survival piece is really critical, and the cash flow management is really going to be a big challenge for a lot of companies this year. I've just finished reading, and I know I've circulated to a few people, a report on banking for 2021-2022. Produced by one of the big consultancy firms. And as an ex-banker, I got to say, I think it's going to be very challenging for companies, you know, not just managing the cash that's outstanding to them from their customers, but also trying to source new forms of financing and funding, both from banks and from existing shareholders. I think from what I'm reading, it looks like Q3, Q4 this year is going to be extremely challenging for many businesses. And I really think, you know, CFOs are going to, you know, have to go back to survival and making sure that, you know, they have plenty cash on hand and that they're shoring up, you know, their cash just in case we don't come out of this session. Hopefully, with the vaccines and things like that, then, you know, I'm sure optimistically looking forward that things will kind of come out of it. But I think that's probably going to be a big challenge. And then at the same time, we can't just sit there and, sorry, there's somebody clicking in the background there. It's really bugging me. But I think we've got to make sure that, you know, as a business, we don't stop and turn off the lights. So it's trying to get the balance between cash management and still trying to do business. We have to invest, you know, as we've spoken about earlier, invest in our technology so we can be more efficient. And obviously, you know, a longer term result in that one will be we'll be more efficient, so therefore we'll be more profitable. But I think it's just difficult to know. You know, putting long-term planning in place is going to be very challenging. So I agree with David as well. It's going to have to be dynamic planning. And again, this is why real-time analytics are going to be crucial for companies to survive as part of the challenge with COVID-19 or the fallout. But it really is interesting, guys. I was just wondering, in terms of staffing, do you think what's happening in terms of people working from home and remote working, is that going to have a big impact on the finance function?
I think it will, as long as it forces finance functions to find a new way to measure output, productivity. Because I do feel, certainly in this region, that we're much more concerned with who turns up and how long they hang around rather than what they do. With people no longer in the office, the focus will change. And it'll be a larger concern will be, well, what are they doing? Where is the output of the work that's been done? And that's a positive. Also, as well as taking people off the roads, which make them less busy, and saving people anything up to 2 hours a day of commuting, which is a complete waste of their time.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
Bill,
really interesting. Yeah.
Bill, the other thing about staffing that it's going to come to the fore is whilst there are a lot of people who are now out of work, there's still going to be a critical shortage in certain key areas. A lot of people have already left and gone home. There's still many people in the country holding on and hoping that they can get re-employed. But in certain areas, critical staff have already left. And the likelihood of them coming back in the short term, especially with a lot of travel restrictions in place, and we don't know what is going to happen, I think could be quite a challenge for the workforce.
Yes, I think from what I've seen so far, obviously with people remote working, I think people and companies need to make sure that people are getting upskilled more and more in the digital skill set. But I also think there's going to be a huge move going forward to outsourcing. So again, companies at the moment are carrying a lot of cost, not just in terms of the salary, but in all the other associated costs like end of service, the visa, health insurance, etc. I think this could be an interesting opportunity for companies if we do have a remote workforce to possibly look at more like freelancing and outsourced type arrangements. So again, it's a bit like hot desking, that is something that has come in massively over the last number of years because people just are, because we have the technology to be flexible. So I think we're going to see, we know ourselves, outsourcing is becoming a much bigger demand because we provide an outsourced solution for finance and CFOs. And I think that's probably something that I think we will see growing more and more. Okay,
but Bill, don't you see the challenge on that particular one being those that have companies that have migrated to the cloud, as opposed to those who have got all on-site servers and so on? Be a lot more difficult for them to outsource rather than.
And look, this is kind of what led into the technology question: should we invest or not? Because it's difficult for companies to outsource or to remote work if they haven't got the technology in place to do that, if they haven't got cloud infrastructure. The challenge is, and we see it, we were chatting to a legal partnership a couple of weeks back who have a lot of their partners working remotely, and their devices are not secure at all, and they're not very technology savvy. So I think there is a risk. I think it's something that people will want to do. It's whether or not they can do it. Folks, I'm just conscious of time. I'd just like to thank David and Peter for contributing to tonight's session with me. It was really, it's quite rushed. And look, I think for us, it's our inaugural event with Hoft. We're delighted to be part of it. There was just a couple of things I just wanted to wrap up. We're going to be doing future sessions and masterclasses with Hoft. Not least of which we've touched tonight on automation and how as an organization we can help your organization to roll it out, and what are the key things you should be looking at in terms of approach. Cybersecurity, definitely going to be a super hot topic again, and managing data and data protection. We're seeing a lot of GDPR coming into the region now, and that's only going to become more and more relevant. ERP systems, for me, the #1 area for companies to really look at in 2021. So again, we're looking at things like family office, how to set it up. And again, this is going to be crucial. I think 2021 is going to be a big wake-up call to a lot of families who are holding the family assets within companies in groups, which isn't smart. It's what has been done. It's how it's always been done. It's very much an organic process, but I think unfortunately this year, like 2008, a lot of families are going to get hit. And if they haven't got the right structure set up in place and they haven't segregated assets from the rest of the business, there could be something there. So look, we're going to be doing more and more sessions there. And then last but not least, we are doing a special offer for Hoft and its members to do an ERP audit. We're going to give a 20% discount, again, depending on the size or the nature of the business. Initially, what we will be doing is we will be giving individuals, chats. We'll have a chat with people just to understand what the businesses are. But whatever price we come to, we'll be giving a 20% discount on that. And similarly for cyber audits are normally a little bit quicker and they're more discreet. So again, we're giving a discount on that of 10%. That will be until the 31st of March and it's first come, first serve. So if you are interested in either of those two offers, please get in touch with us. We have our contact details at the end, Bill at thnk.big, which is my short email address, or Chris, who is one of our directors, Chris at thnk.big. As I mentioned, I know I'll hand over to Mohammed just to wrap things up, but any questions, we will take those ones offline. At this stage, we just don't want to be keeping people too late in the evening. Thanks again, and thanks, Mohammed, for having us tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bill. Thank you very much, Bill, David, and Peter, for such insightful and practical presentation. And I hope lots of people got value from it. And I think there are a couple of questions, but of course, due to I think time overrun, we might not be able to cover all of them. But we keep ensure that we will address all of them offline, and we will share it with the group also, all the attendees. Just I think one question we can take. I think some question you have already covered during the panel discussion, which were asked by some of the attendees. But just one question we can you can take just quickly answer, and then we will wrap up this webinar. It's like, what skills should the finance professionals or the CFOs should focus more on during this 2021 to acquire, like from their career perspective or talent perspective, if we talk about, and then we will close. Yeah.
Sure. I think if I take that one, Mohammed, I think it's being technology savvy. You know, the businesses that are going to survive going forward. And this... Sorry, can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah, Bill, you're clear on my side.
Oh, okay. I think maybe on Mohammed's side it might be broken up. I was just saying, I think the real skill set will be digital and technology skill sets. So, you know, for any organization going forward, business transformation is digital transformation. And whether you are a manufacturing company, whether you're a retail organization, whether you're a financial services organization, whether you're a multi-conglomerate, technology is at the heart of every business. So if I go back 20 years in the past, you know, finance was normally all these other functions reported up into the CFO. And ironically enough, I kind of see that kind of, you know, going back in full circle, where the CFO now is moving out of just finance and certainly always has been involved in strategy and commercial side, but really getting very heavily involved in technical. It was interesting because I did a panel last year and we asked a CTO, a CFO, and a head of internal audit and a CEO who owned technology in the business. And they all said they did, which is quite interesting. So I think the skill set, which isn't very common, I took a year out of my CFO career in the year 2000 and I left investment banking and I did a year working in a technology company. And that was because I felt it was a huge gap. I studied IT as part of my ACCA qualification, but it was theoretical. Spending a year working in a technology company made a huge difference to me personally in terms of my skill set. So I think that would be the skill. I don't know what you think, Peter or David.
Yeah, Bill, I tend to agree with that. You can't take away from the normal basic skills that are there, but certainly enhancing skill sets, becoming more technologically savvy, I think is the single biggest skill set. And the other way is typically getting the mindset to move away from business as usual. Never accept because it's always been done that way as an answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to, I suppose, close this piece out. As accountants, we can look back and we can remember a time when things were done on paper ledgers, even though we weren't there. We should be thinking about a similar jump technology forward. We also have the advantage, remember, that we are involved cross-functionally in every single function. So we have to think technologically and from a service delivery point of view as to how that can be done better and is being done better elsewhere. There are enough examples, and go ahead and do that and be that person.
Yeah, exactly. I think I tend to agree with all of you. Of course, with the digital tech savvy as a CFO finance professional, obviously it is one of the major requirement, as and Bill mentioned, to have a commercial and business acumen. And also apart from this, of course, to have a strong leadership also, to have us on the soft skill side. Obviously, that's also very important. So that's all I think we can wrap up. And thank you very much, all the speakers, Bill and David and Peter. Thank you very much, and thank you all the attendees for just bearing with us for some extra time as we time run out. So we will try to conduct some more sessions in the future. And thanks to all of you. Thank you very much, and have a good night.
Thank you, Mohammed. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much, Mohammed. Goodbye, everybody.
Yeah. Goodbye.